Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I've got the 74 K3 CT70 on the bench and just finishing up some final touches because I'm almost done with this bike. T-Bolt USA sent the front and rear fenders that they carry, and I've got those mounted on, and I think that gives the bike a very classic look that it needs. I have the OEM cable management in the front that holds the front brake cable and speedometer cable. And after going back and forth and tuning both carbs, I'm going to keep the 20mm carburetor setup that T-Bolt USA sent. I'm getting what I feel is the most power out of it and the most smooth power curve. And overall, this engine is one of the fastest stock Honda engines that I've had on a bike. I've also dug the most into this engine of any of these stock engines so far. And on the restoration bike, I'm planning on tearing into that one entirely. But top speed, I'm getting 43 miles an hour off of a GPS, so pretty fast for such a small engine. This has the 88cc big bore kit. I did change up the gearing as well. I'm running a 15 tooth front sprocket and a 35 tooth rear sprocket. That seems to give me the best balance between low end and top speed. Overall, this is a really nice bike to ride. As I started building this, I wasn't really sure where this fit in the scheme of all the bikes that I've built and own, but I think I'm going to keep this one for a couple of reasons. One, it looks really good, and like I said, it rides great. Additionally though, this is I think going to be a great test platform for me trying out different products and seeing how different items fit and work, because it's a pretty stock CT70 that I can again use for lots of different purposes. So really happy with the way that it's come together. There's still a few little things that I want to work out. I also wanted to show in detail how I have the carburetor set up, because using that Petcock that T-Bolt sent, I was able to get it all looking really clean. I used the mounting point for the original air filter to hold the Petcock, both lines coming into that, and then a single fuel line coming into the carburetor. It doesn't look too much of a departure from OEM, and again, I'm getting the performance that I want out of it, so it's staying on the bike. Something else that I'm working on is the rear license plate and tail light bracket. I found this on eBay after searching for quite a while. The chrome wasn't in great shape, but structurally it was sound, and there weren't any big dents or bends, so I had this powder coated, I think this is called bright silver. The color actually looks very close to the cloud silver that are on the wheels and the front forks. So I think it looks overall pretty good, and again, the cost to re-chrome this would have been over $100, maybe almost $200. So pretty satisfied with the way that the powder coat came out. I'm just waiting on the rubber mounts so that I can do final mounting onto the frame and I guess the lower half mounts to the rear fender. So one part that seems to be really hard to find is the 6-volt battery box. That seems to be a pretty niche piece, and I'm surprised somebody isn't doing a remanufacture of those at this point, just because it's such a common part. I know a lot of people just run these bikes without the battery, but a couple things. One is running it without the battery doesn't regulate the voltage, and you're likely to get lights blowing out from too much voltage coming through, which is actually what happened on this bike when I was doing some test rides. It just also completes the overall build of the bike. The 6-volt batteries are so inexpensive that there's no reason not to do it, again, other than the difficulty in finding the battery box. So here's an OEM battery box that I have out of my other project bike that I used as a template to build this, which was pretty easy to do. I just took 20 gauge sheet steel, cut it into 30mm strips, and made measurements to make it the exact same size as this one. I'm really happy with the way that it came out. Obviously, if you're doing a full restoration, something like this wouldn't suffice, but for this bike, which is a decent restoration, but again, I've got a lot of other aftermarket parts on it, it's going to work just fine. I have a metal bender from Harbor Freight though that works really well, particularly for lighter steel like this, making nice clean bends. So overall, this looks really sharp. I bent it into the different shapes that I needed, and then just threw a few small tack welds on it, which came out looking really well. I'm going to trim up the edges here, paint it black, and this should be just fine for mounting the battery. And then for the battery itself, I find these on eBay. This is from Parts Unlimited. I think this is only about $20, so it's really inexpensive. And it comes with the correct plug for mounting it into the original wiring harness, and also has a fuse, which is important as well. This particular kit comes with the acid as well, so you need to pour the acid into the battery up to the correct level lines. So you need to be careful there, because acid is something that's dangerous. But I really think the battery is an important final touch in putting these bikes together. And then also just allows all the electronics to work correctly. Even though you can get the headlight and some of the other brake light type electronics to run without the battery, things like the horn aren't going to work very well. And again, everything's going to be inconsistent, because without the battery regulating the voltage, the headlights are going to get brighter or dimmer depending on the RPM of the engine. It's just, again, a better situation to have the battery in there and complete the build of the bike. So back on the exhaust side of the bike, I've tried a few different exhausts on the bike, and I actually have a couple more to try yet. But one thing that I wanted to revisit was the quiet exhaust by TRC that I tried in a previous video to show the decibel level compared to some of the other exhausts. I mentioned in a previous video that I had to make a cut to the header for that TRC quiet pipe to fit the way that I wanted it. So T-Bolt reached out to their fabricator to make a prototype based off of the length that I liked it cut to. So that arrived today. I thought that I'd open that up, get that installed on the bike, try it out, and ride it around a little bit. So here it is, similar shape, a little bit shorter. Let me go ahead and compare it to the original one that I had. So lengthwise, I think that it's going to sit about 2 inches shorter, which was ultimately the difference that I got based on the way that I cut the exhaust. So I think the way that they shorten the pipe here on this prototype looks pretty good, because I like where the clamp sits in placement of the can. The can itself is forward of the end of the seat, and everything fits much better than it did with the other version that I just kind of chopped up to make work. The engine's cold, but let me go ahead and fire it up and see what it sounds like. I already did a full video on the sound that this particular exhaust makes, but since this is a new pipe and on the bike again, let me give it a crank. Check that out. Completely cold engine, easy start. The rattling you're hearing when I'm revving it is all the little metal things that are on the table here, so that's not coming from the exhaust of the pipe. But yeah, really clean sound, and again, quieter than than all the other exhausts I've tried so far on this bike. I haven't tried a full stock exhaust on this yet, so that'll be one that I'll have to compare here in the future. But happy with the way that it looks, particularly with the modification, and yeah, I love the way that this one sounds. I'm also really impressed with how easily this bike starts. That really was a completely cold start. Engine hadn't been running for at least 24 hours, and yeah, just the lightest touch at the kickstart and it turns over. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm sure more to come on this particular exhaust as T-Bolt works through this prototype to make something available for everybody. I'll link in the description to all of the T-Bolt parts that I reviewed today, including the fenders, the Petcock, the 20mm carburetor, and some of the other small parts as I get very close to finishing up this bike. Again, I think I'm going to keep this bike for a long time as my platform for testing out new products like exhausts, trying to compare sound levels and sound quality, as well as other things that come to market that may just be good to have a test bed to try those out on, because some of my other more wild builds or my other restoration bike that I'm starting that I'm going to want to be very careful with, this is a good one that I can kind of try all kinds of things out on. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.